also found this information on magnetic free energy, which is defined as the potential energy within a magnetic field. I have highlighted the point made here that a stronger magnetic field leads to higher magnetic free energy, because I'm heading in that direction here with another possible explanation for what creates Earth's magnetic fields besides the geodynamo process that is promoted and taught by academia. In the process of doing this, I will provide a very different explanation of what we may actually be looking at with regards to the destruction of both the Earth's energy grid and the surface of the Earth, and how the Earth's magnetic fields were weakened. First, I would like to revisit the previously mentioned Alexander von Humboldt, the Prussian naturalist and explorer who was so keen to climb Mount Teide on Tenerife in 1799, and who had one of the world's preeminent universities in the study of natural sciences in the 1800s and 1900s named after him. Alexander von Humboldt was considered one of the founders of the science of geomagnetism, having studied in great detail the systematic change of magnetic field strength with distance from the equator, and initiated synchronized magnetic field observations across the Earth, and he made significant contributions to the charting of the Earth's geomagnetic field. In this chart of Humboldt's of the Earth's magnetic field, there are 2 points of information I would like to bring forward in what I have underlined in red at the bottom. The first is that this is a world map of isodynams measured between 1790 and 1830. The definition of isodynam, or isodynamic, is connecting points on the Earth's surface that have the same magnetic intensity. The other point that I want to bring forward is that it was published in Gotha in 1837. Gotha was the home base and origin place of the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, the obscure German ducal lineage that replaced the original royal houses of Europe, primarily through first cousins Queen Victoria and Prince Albert, but the original royal houses were also replaced through other descendants of Duke Francis of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld, the progenitor of this ducal lineage, who was born in 1750. Gotha was also where Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Bavarian Order of the Illuminati in 1776, went to live in 1784, when Weishaupt's radical views on Illuminism got him into trouble with the ruler in Bavaria after his writings were intercepted and deemed seditious. We are told he was born in 1748, just 2 years before Duke Francis was born, and died in Gotha in 1830. You know, the founder of that Illuminati. And as I mentioned previously in this video, members of the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha had wyverns and wyvern tails prominently featured in their coats of arms, like this one of the Portuguese royal house of Braganza that married into the obscure ducal family in 1836, when Prince Ferdinand of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha married Queen Maria II of Portugal. Again, wyverns are described as unambiguously malicious predators, and wyverns in heraldry signify war, envy, and pestilence, which is certainly something we've been seeing all along this alignment in our modern history. So Mayer Amschel Rothschild, the founder of the Rothschild international banking family dynasty throughout major cities of Europe, was born in 1744. Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Bavarian Order of the Illuminati, was born in 1748, and Duke Francis of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld, the progenitor of the obscure ducal lineage that replaced the original royal houses of Europe, was born in 1750. These 3 men were all born in Germany within 6 years of each other, and in the 9-year time period after the Great Frost of Ireland, an extraordinary cold weather event in Ireland between 1740 and 1741, during which time the Irish population endured 21 months of bizarre weather without known precedent that defied conventional explanation, and the cause was not known. This leads into how I believe the Great Frost of Ireland was a rip in the fabric of space-time caused by the Philadelphia experiment, which then allowed great evil in the form of parasitic non-human souls to incarnate in human form on the Earth, and subsequently created the conditions for the world we are living in today. More on this belief to come later in this video. Interestingly, there was a movie made in 1980 called The Final Countdown, which was about a time-traveling naval vessel in the form of the USS Nimitz going back in time to the day before the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th of 1941. And I do believe that the coat of arms of Tenerife is telling us something that is otherwise hidden from our awareness, with the image of a tree on the shield that is enclosed between a wyvern supporter on either side. Is Mount Teide on Tenerife the remnants of a giant tree, as well as all the other volcanic islands, seamounts, guyots, and monadnocks? The term monad, found in the word monadnock, has been used in philosophical schools like that of the Pythagorean to represent the absolute, the supreme being, divinity, and the totality of all things. Among many other things, Chad and I talked about this in depth in our previously mentioned deeper conversation with Chad on giant trees, the Earth's grid, and the New World Order. Furthermore, were the giant trees generating the Earth's magnetic field and not the geodynamo process accepted by mainstream science connected to the interaction of the Earth's rotational axis with the molten iron and nickel in the Earth's outer core? Is this why volcanoes and seamounts are on airline flight trackers for navigational purposes and not for entertainment alone? I recently found a mountain in Mexico associated with magnetic declination just outside of Teotihuacan on an alignment I am currently researching. The town of San Luis Tezuautitlan is located in altitude at 2,450 meters or 8,038 feet on Cerro Gordo, Tonantepetl. Cerro Gordo means fat hill and has that giant tree stump looking appearance. I found this map when I typed in San Luis Tezuautitlan to look for information on it, and it was in a link about the magnetic declination there. Magnetic declination, also known as magnetic variation, is the angle between true north and magnetic north at a specific location on Earth, and this is important because it is needed to determine true north and affects the accuracy of navigational tools. Then there's the fabled Rupus nigra, or black rock, to consider as a giant tree stump. In a nutshell, the Rupus nigra was believed to be an enormous mountain of magnetic stone located at the magnetic North Pole and 33 miles or 53 kilometers wide, and explained why compasses always pointed north. This is known as the 1595 Arctic map of Gerardus Mercator, and was published after his death in 1594 by his son. But the Rupus nigra also comes down to us as a phantom island, defined as an island that existed on maps for a period of time, but was found later not to exist. In our historical narrative, Gerardus Mercator was a Flemish geographer, cartographer, and cosmographer who was also a globe maker, like this one from 1541. And the Earth's ley lines started to disappear from maps when Gerardus Mercator published a world map in 1569 that is considered to be the first where sailing courses on the sphere were mapped to the plane map, allowing for a correction of the chart to be more useful for sailors. Now, what about the electro part of the electromagnetic grid? I think in ancient times, known to us as Neolithic, it was comprised of different kinds of stone circles and standing stone configurations, other types of henges, cursus, dolmens, barrows, and so forth, like what you see at Stonehenge in England and Carnac in Brittany in France, for two examples of countless found all over the earth. There's even a perfect Stonehenge in Washington state, but it was said to have been built as a war memorial between 1918 and 1929. And the Miami Circle was discovered in 1998 in downtown Miami, Florida, when the building complex sitting on top of it was torn down. It had a septic tank in it too. In 2002, it was listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and in 2009, it was declared a National Historic Landmark. Back in England, the stone circle of Arbor Low has a tree reference right in it, with an arbor being defined as a shady garden alcove with sides and a roof formed by trees. Arbor Low is a hub of ley lines, as seen in this screenshot I received from Adam of Alchemy Spectrum. Adam works with ley lines to heal people and places, and he also makes videos about his ley line research. Adam has joined Chad and I in 3 deeper conversations with Chad, where we bring together our different lines of research and talk about what we think has taken place here. Similar to Arbor Low in England, the Monadnock Pilot Mountain in North Carolina was identified as a ley line hub by geographer Peter Champoux on the homepage of his website. Peter Champoux has done incredible work on specific ley lines as seen on his website geometryofplace.com. As time went on from the megalithic infrastructure of the Neolithic or New Stone Age, the electro part of the electromagnetic grid evolved into rail infrastructure, lighthouses, star forts, S-shaped rivers, hydroelectric plants, bridges, and so much more. What was interesting was finding out that the megalithic infrastructure was still part of the electromagnetic grid system as it evolved. Using Pilot Mountain as an example, it was known as Mount Ararat before it was called Pilot Mountain. I looked into it and found the historic Ararat River with rail infrastructure running beside it on the top left, and today's Ararat River Greenway Trail, where the railroad used to be, on the bottom right. The Ararat River Greenway Trail is at the eastern edge of the city of Mount Airy. More examples of finding out that the megalithic and ancient infrastructure was still part of the electromagnetic grid system as it evolved include, but are not limited to, Machu Picchu in Peru, which is accessible by a train which runs along the S-shaped Urubamba River, and the Great Serpent Mound in Peebles in Adams County, Ohio. The Great Serpent Mound is in close proximity to the S-shaped bends of Brush Creek and its nearby confluences and junctions with other watercourses, as seen in this illustration circa 1883 compared with the Google Earth screenshot of the location on the right. From the 1914 Railroad Map of Ohio from the Ohio Public Utilities Commission, here's a close-up of the railroads in the southwestern part of Ohio, where Peebles and Adams County is located, near the state's border with Kentucky, which is formed by the S-shaped bends of the Ohio River. The Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad is marked in yellow on the map where it parallels the Ohio River. Peebles is circled in red on the rail line passing through, and there is a red box around Brush Creek showing an historic railroad line there. I'm going into the evolution of the Earth's electromagnetic energy grid system because I believe that the circuit board of the Earth's grid system was deliberately blown out in order to bring about the New World Order, causing whole land masses to shear off and submerge under seas and oceans, and creating, among other things, swamps, bogs, estuaries, deserts, dunes, and so forth. After doing this research where underwater trees have come up, I think the destruction of the grid further caused a magnetic pole shift, which resulted in what is commonly known as the mud flood, in which the surface of the Earth liquefied, undulated, and buckled, and the Earth's magnetic field was weakened considerably. Hence Alexander von Humboldt's detailed readings on the strength of the magnetic field from different locations around the world. They needed to see what they had left to work with. Now I'm going to provide supporting evidence from the area of study in this video on the North Atlantic coast of North America and the Indian Ocean for what I am talking about and seeing all over the place. I recently compiled numerous places around the world with similar characteristics of what appears to be sunken and destroyed land, particularly along continental coastlines, in on the Trail of Giants in Appalachia and beyond. Theme 4, the Cataclysm, and I also talk in detail about how I believe the energy grid was destroyed, which I will touch on a little bit here as well. So places that I have looked at on the North Atlantic coast of North America include Cape Cod in Massachusetts. Here's a current map showing 14 lighthouses on Cape Cod alone, as well as other lighthouses of this part of New England on the left, and an historic old colony railroad that traversed the length of Cape Cod. I think the rail lines and lighthouses were part of a worldwide energy grid system in perfect resonance, and I believe that a forced resonance went throughout the grid system and caused the system to go haywire, and the surrounding land sank or turned into swamps, bogs, barrens, or deserts and dunes. The lighthouses were then repurposed for guiding ships through the newly formed rocky shoals and dangerous waters. I do not believe the original purpose of lighthouses was for guiding ships, but functioned more as light energy distribution systems for the energy grid. I have also looked in depth at the numerous star forts and lighthouses in Portland, Maine's Casco Bay, and the same in Boston Harbor, just a short distance down the North Atlantic coast from Portland. Both places are described as an estuary, and both have a considerable number of islands, with Casco Bay having what are called the Calendar Islands, so named because there is said to be an island for every day of the year, and 34 of the islands in Boston Harbor have been part of the Boston Harbor Island National Recreational Area since 1996. And these two places in Maine and Massachusetts are located where I started this video on the continental shelf off the coast of New England and the New England seamounts. I find the same thing where I have been looking in the Indian Ocean. Here is a map showing all the lighthouses along the coast of India on the left and the railways of India on the right, including railway that traverses coastal India as well. So with this in mind, back in Dwarka, where there is known sunken infrastructure off the northwest coast of India seen earlier in this video, we find the Dwarka Lighthouse. The Dwarka Lighthouse is located 2.5 miles or 4 kilometers from the Dwarka railway station. The Dwarka Lighthouse was said to have been built in 1866, and the railroad was said to have first come here in 1922. And in this Google Earth screenshot, you can see the shallow, murky waters with bits of land poking up here and there. I would also like to share what I found at the chain of low islands and reefs called Adam's Bridge, also known as Rama's Bridge or Ram Setu, which separates the southern tip of India from Sri Lanka. There's a rail line today that still operates from the town of Mandapam in Tamil Nadu to the Indian side of Adam's Bridge. The Pamban Bridge crossing through here is described as a masterpiece of engineering and has a movable section midway that is raised to allow ship and barge traffic to pass through. Over a mile long, at 6,776 feet or 2,065 meters, it was said to have been constructed between 1911 and 1914. You can take a ferry across in the same general location as the sunken parts of Adam's Bridge to Talaimanar on Sri Lanka's Mannar Island and catch the train onto anywhere else you want to go in Sri Lanka. The Mannar line was said to have been built by 1914 to connect Talaimanar to the Sri Lankan mainland. There are two lighthouses on Pamban Island, also known as Ramaswaram Island, located between the southern tip of India and Sri Lanka in what is called the Ramasetu Archipelago. Both of these lighthouses were said to have been built in 1845. Ramaswaram is the principal town on this island and is a major Hindu pilgrimage center as one of the holiest cities in India. It is also the terminus of a railway line in Tamil Nadu state from Chennai to Madurai and is connected to the mainland by the previously mentioned engineering masterpiece, the Pamban Bridge. As seen on this map, there's an arrow pointing at Dhanushkodi right by the water's edge on the Indian side of Adam's Bridge. There was a railway station at Dhanushkodi. It was serving the Manamadurai Ramaswaram branch line of the Madras Railway from about 1914 and was part of what was called the Boat Mail Express that connected Madras in India, today's Chennai, with a combined train-ferry train service to Colombo in Ceylon, which is today's Sri Lanka. Then we were told that the 1964 Ramaswaram cyclone destroyed the town of Dhanushkodi, and it was never rebuilt and abandoned. There are also two historic lighthouses in Talaimanar on Sri Lanka's Mannar Island. What is called the New Mannar Lighthouse was said to have been built in 1915 and is where the rail line ends next to the water. What is called the Old Mannar Lighthouse was also said to have been built in 1915 and was decommissioned. I believe that the electromagnetic grid system evolved from a worldwide megalithic system into a worldwide integrated system of things including, but not limited to, lighthouses, rail infrastructure, S-shaped rivers and canals, star forts, and much, much more. And I think that ancient giant trees and the root system emanating from them were an integral part of the Earth's energy grid and ley line system. The original rail lines and S-shaped rivers and canals would have been providing power for the free energy system, and the original architecture and infrastructure would have provided the antiquitech to process and utilize the free energy throughout the worldwide system. The Earth's original free energy grid system was based on exact and precise geometric alignments of cities and places. Nowadays, the giant tree roots are highway routes and recreational trails, which has more to do with human energy being harvested from their use, instead of infrastructure creating free energy for the system to use for the benefit of all life everywhere. I don't believe we got to crazy town in our world today as a result of random events, but that we got here as the result of a deliberate, multi-generational plan. This realm and the New World Order timeline we find ourselves on was occulted, inverted, subverted, perverted, and implemented by demonic, non-human, parasitic beings who only want what we can provide them and feed on the lowest vibrational state of organic life. I believe this man, Aleister Crowley, caused the destruction of the Earth's precisely tuned grid system, which destroyed the surface of the Earth and facilitated the incarnation of satanic and demonic forces into this realm, turning upside down the original advanced civilization once living here in peace, beauty, and harmony. Important players involved in the creation of the New World Order and New Narrative included the Jesuit and Franciscan missionaries, the hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church, and the royal houses of Europe, along with the involvement of the highest echelons of secret societies, including but not limited to the Freemasons, Oddfellows, Knights of Pythias, and the Skull and Bones Society. In this video on the destruction, exploitation, and reverse engineering of the Earth's grid system, Chad, Atom of Alchemy Spectrum, and I talked in depth about things like the subject of Aleister Crowley and what I am calling the Philadelphia Experiment ley line, as well as evidence for his involvement in the reverse engineering of the Earth's grid system from positive and life-enhancing for the benefit of all life everywhere to a negative control system for the benefit of a very few. Adam lives in Warwickshire, near where Crowley was born and raised, in Royal Leamington Spa near Warwick, and as a ley line specialist has done a lot of work in finding Crowley connections all around this area of Warwickshire with respect to finding evidence through the ley lines here about how the Earth's grid system was reverse engineered by Crowley. Coincidentally or not, Aleister Crowley's hometown of Royal Leamington Spa was also the location of the Rosalind Franklin Laboratory. The Rosalind Franklin Laboratory first opened in June of 2021 and was the United Kingdom's first COVID PCR testing megalab and part of the Lighthouse Laboratory network that was at the heart of the UK Health Security Agency's plans for managing COVID-19. It ceased operations in February of 2023. In author Peter Moon's book Synchronicity and the Seventh Seal, which is where I first learned about the Crowley connection to the Philadelphia experiment, Peter mentioned that he had a correspondence with Crowley's son Amato, and that Amato related to him that on the day of the Philadelphia experiment, which he gave as August 12th of 1943, Crowley had passed him as a child through the circular megalith at Menantoul in Morvah, Cornwall, and that when he did this, it caused a line of rough energy to cross the ocean. This passage in the book also goes on to say further that while the OTO disputed this, others had no problems with his claim and reported that during an eclipse ceremony on August 11th of 1998 at Menantoul, an eclipse shadow line ran from Cairo, Egypt to Montauk, Long Island, straight through Menantoul. So with regards to the alleged Crowley connection with the Philadelphia experiment, I extended the Pine Barrens alignment that I found connecting the three Pine Barrens of New Jersey, central Long Island, and coastal Massachusetts. Going in the northeast direction, the alignment connected to Morvah in Cornwall, the location of Menantoul, and going in a southwest direction, I took it as far as the bayous in Louisiana, along with at least one abandoned train found out in the middle of nowhere in the New Jersey Pine Barrens. There is at least one abandoned train in a bayou in Ascension Parish. What I think could have happened is that the rough line of energy caused by Crowley's ritual ceremony on Cornwall caused a forced resonant frequency to go throughout the Earth's entire grid system, either all at the same time or in waves, like the aftershocks of earthquakes, and causing it to go haywire, leading to the destruction of the entire system and dramatically changing the face of the Earth. And consider the possibility that the manipulation of time and space involved in the Philadelphia experiment could also have carried this forced resonant frequency back in time to create the cataclysmic event as opposed to something that happened in the present moment. All three of the Pine Barren ecosystems of coastal Massachusetts, central Long Island, and New Jersey are on this alignment as seen in the top left. Provincetown, at the bottom left, is at the tip of Cape Cod, where the Pilgrim Monument is located, and also on the alignment. And all of Cape Cod, as well as the Elizabeth Islands, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket, is part of the Southeastern Massachusetts Pine Barrens Alliance on the right. The Pilgrim Monument is a bell tower that is the tallest granite structure in the United States, and granite rings with a bell-like sound when it is struck. If Crowley's ritual ceremony at Menantoul did in fact send a line of rough energy towards Long Island, as claimed by his son to Peter Moon as mentioned previously, it would have crossed through or near the Pilgrim Monument, with the energy thereby striking it, either directly or indirectly, and cause a forced resonant frequency to go through the grid system. Resonance occurs in oscillating systems when an external force with the same natural frequency causes a rise in amplitude, which results in a net rise of mechanical energy. Forced resonance leads to excessive vibrations and structural failure. It is interesting to note that Provincetown, the same location as the towering Pilgrim Monument, located on the tip of Cape Cod, is one of the most LGBTQ inclusive places in the country, and has been for a long time. As early as 1900, when an artist colony and experimental theater developed there, including drag shows in the 1940s. Aleister Crowley was known openly as the wickedest man in the world. I am sure that some of you will be aware of who this person is, but I would surmise that this name would be unfamiliar to most people. Crowley was also known as the Beast. Crowley claimed that when he was honeymooning with his wife Rose Kelly in Cairo, Egypt, he was contacted by a disembodied entity named Aiwass, who provided him with the Book of the Law, which became the basis for Thelema, an esoteric and occult religious movement that Crowley founded in the early 1900s, and he identified himself as the prophet of a new era of spiritual development for humanity. The basic tenet of the Book of the Law and Thelema is, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." In other words, you can do anything you want without guilt, no matter how bad it is or how much it hurts others. Crowley was highly involved in Freemasonry and in ceremonial magical practices, including sex magic, and he was known to have been bisexual. He also assumed the title of Baphomet within the Ordo Templi Orientis, aka OTO, originally founded in the early 20th century by German occultists and modeled after Freemasonry. Crowley described the Baphomet as a divine androgyny and the hieroglyph of divine perfection. Not a surprise to find out that the first formal presence of Crowley's OTO in the United States was the Agape Lodge, which would have served Hollywood as it was established in Los Angeles in 1935, and today the Star Sapphire Lodge serves the greater Los Angeles area. I believe this information is quite relevant to the bizarre agendas we see playing out in the world today, and they want to turn us into them. The image on the left popped up when I searched for "they want to turn us into them," instead of us being in the image of God on the right. Crowley was said to have died on December 1st of 1947, and that his ashes were buried under a tree in Hampton, New Jersey, a town with a railroad junction, in the garden of German occultist Karl Germer. But I don't think Crowley actually died. I think he morphed into Barbara Bush. I don't think she was his daughter, which has been making the rounds on alternative media for quite some time. I believe Barbara Bush was actually Aleister Crowley, and interestingly, as seen here, making a shh gesture in the photo that is identical to the raised index finger in front of the mouth of what is commonly known as the shh statue on the waterfront in New Jersey, directly across the Hudson River from New York City. The 80-foot or 24-meter tall statue, named Water's Soul, was unveiled in October of 2021. And the world's controllers, the globalist elite, love in particular to pass off men as women to an unknowing public and rub our noses in it. These are just two of the best known of countless examples. Then, to add insult to injury, they bring out fact checkers to deny what has become more obvious to more and more people as time goes on. Yet here is the same shh gesture that we just saw in the Bush Crowley photo and the gigantic head on the Hudson River waterfront. It sure looks like to me that a rich, vibrant, and unacknowledged history of humanity has been plundered and destroyed, only to be replaced with violence, death, and destruction. As I have been discussing throughout this video, knowledge of the Earth's energy grid system was deliberately removed from our collective awareness by malevolent beings who definitely do not have humanity's best interest at heart. Our history was revised, and the truth became shattered and fragmented, and instead, we have been kept in the dark and fed garbage. Fake history, fake science, fake fact checkers, fake food, and goodness knows what else. While I absolutely believe that humanity has a much better future in store for us than what was planned for us, this is what we've been dealing with here. From the controller's perspective, we are not supposed to know anything true or real. I'm going to end this video here, and in the next video pick up the alignment where it leaves the Maldives and continues across the Indian Ocean into Indonesia through the Sunda Strait, and I'm going to track it across Indonesia to the island of Timor. which, while it is in the Timor Sea, it is still part of the Indian Ocean. It is interesting to note that the first place I am heading to, the Sunda Strait, is the location of the island of Krakatoa. Krakatoa is a volcanic island that was recorded to have exploded in a major eruption in 1883 with global effects.